This paints a vivid picture of the streets in Chinese cities where countless individuals find their resting places under bridges or on park benches adjacent to basketball courts. These individuals, largely comprised of the unemployed, as revealed by local netizens who post these videos, are forced to sleep on the streets due to a lack of job opportunities and monetary resources. In the early hours of the morning, at around 3 a.m., a similar scene unfolds at Beijing Children's Hospital in China's capital city, where people sleep on the ground or rest on benches. In China, these scenes of people sleeping on the streets are generally concealed. The government, in an attempt to mask the issue of homelessness, dispatches police to apprehend these individuals and uses fire extinguishers or high-pressure water hoses to disperse them. This practice has provoked cynicism amongst netizens with comments such as, "In China, even the freedom to be homeless is denied." A homeless man in his 30s was arrested on the street by police, a sight that drew sympathetic remarks from netizens, one of whom noted, "The look in his eyes is so heart-wrenching." In Shenzhen, jobless individuals who resort to sleeping on streets are driven away by security personnel with fire extinguishers.
I am currently located in the underground passageway on the first floor of Shenzhen Longhua bus station. During the day, these grounds are dry, but they become wet at night. Why? Because the government has installed sprinklers overhead. The purpose of these sprinklers? To deter workers and homeless individuals without the means for accommodations who sleep here at night, detracting from the city's image. Sprinklers are not only installed in the underground area of the first floor, but also in the shops below. These wet conditions leave these workers and homeless individuals with no place to hide, forcing them to leave.
Longtime volunteer and advocate for the homeless, Mr. Lee shares that many people end up jobless and living on the streets in first-tier cities like Guangzhou and Shenzhen. He adds that 60% of his article he has written have been censored. Mr. Lee states, "Factories have moved or closed down and recovery might take some time. Many people are unwilling to go to the shelters due to the lack of freedom. Some chooses to stay outside and yes, they are driven away. In Shenzhen, for instance, sometimes they use water sprinklers to prevent people from sleeping. Some churches help by arranging meals." Another netizen reveals this year, the number of homeless people in Jing'an, Shandong is the highest I've seen in my lifetime. This year, China's economy has been continuously sluggish, leading to an unprecedented deterioration in employment. The youth unemployment rate announced by the National Bureau of Statistics of China in June reached a historic high of 21.3%. However, an article published by the mainland financial media Caixin reported a study led by scholar Zhang Dandan from Peking University. The study concluded that if the 60 million lying flat or NEET non-workers are counted as unemployed, the actual unemployment rate among young people under 24 years old in March this year will be as high as 46.5%, significantly higher than the official figures released by China. The discrepancy between the numbers provided by Peking University scholars and the official Chinese figures primarily arises from the inclusion of 60 million young people who choose to live off their parents and not seek employment. In official statistics, these 60 million individuals are considered non-labor force population. According to a report by Radio Free Asia, Lai Rongwei, the executive director of the Taiwan Inspiration Association, claimed that the Chinese authorities have evidently falsified youth unemployment rates. Friends teaching in mainland China have reported that the government is pressuring schools to present a rosy picture of the unemployment situation. Lai Rongwei explained many schools have been adopting more lenient policies. For instance, if a student works or tutors for an hour a week, they are not considered unemployed. If they can't even find an hour of tutoring, teachers have to find ways through personal connections or relatives working in companies to let students sign up for a fictitious job. The student is not really working there. This is a form of falsification. China's labor market is fiercely competitive, coupled with a sluggish economy, low social mobility, and a lack of good job opportunities. An increasing number of disillusioned young people are finding themselves in a bind. They choose to lie flat, becoming full-time children, staying home to work with their parents, and receiving wages from them. A new term, slacking off, has become popular among the youth. It conveys a deeper sense of pessimism and a fundamental lack of effort. The 4 no's have also become popular among young people. No dating, no marriage, no buying a house, and no to children. Huang Yichen, a young person persecuted for participating in China's white paper movement, noted that many of his peers who graduated from Ivy League schools in the US returned home to become 4 no's youth. Despite their excellent educational backgrounds, they are struggling to find their place in a China plagued by economic decline and high unemployment. Huang Yichen's opinion is young people in China today do not see hope for a future. Under the rule of the Communist Party, all important positions in politics and the economy in China are occupied by those born in the 1950s. Even those born in the 60s have little space, let alone those born in the 70s, 80s, or 90s. So just how severe is China's unemployment situation? Analysts believe that the youth unemployment rate, typically for those aged 15 to 24, is usually 2 to 3 times the average unemployment rate in most countries. If we base our calculations on the youth unemployment rate of 46.5%, we can roughly estimate that the unemployment rate in China's cities exceed 20%. This does not even take into account rural China, as farmers are not included in the statistical scope. A Chinese truck driver revealed that truck drivers can't find work for 3 to 5 days now. With a bunch of idle trucks in the parking lot and struggling to afford food, he's filled with worry. Many Chinese who cannot find jobs opt to work as drivers for ride-hailing services. But a Shanghai-based driver disclosed that ride fares are very low currently, and with a surplus of cars and shortage of passengers, over 100 drivers sometimes compete for a single order. The job market in China is tight. A female university graduate chose to return to her hometown to start a pig farming business. However, an outbreak of swine fever crushed her dreams, leaving her crying at the sight of her last 2 dying piglets. She lamented over the wasted efforts and investment of the past 6 months, likening to the stones sinking to the bottom of the sea. Though it was hard to accept, she was forced to accept it. What does an unemployment rate exceeding 20% signify? The Great Depression of the last century in the United States provides an illustration. In 1930, the unemployment rate was 8.7%, rose to 15.9% in 1931, and peaked at 24.9% in 1933. At the same time, international trade dropped by 50%. 90,000 factories closed in the US. Real estate investment fell by 70%, and the overall price level declined by 30%. Now, industrialized countries rarely experience such high unemployment rates, as there are rich financial and fiscal experiences to counteract depression, and basic welfare systems are more robust. Welfare expenditures help maintain consumption, preventing a first wave of joblessness from immediately shrinking consumption, closing more factories and deepening unemployment in a spiral. In developed countries, sustained unemployment rates above 10% can have serious political and social consequences. China's current situation is more akin to the 1930s in industrialized countries, with weak welfare expenditures that fail to maintain a basic decent living standard for the unemployed, leading to clear crowding out effect on consumption. Unemployment could trigger a sharp drop in consumption, which in turn could lead to more unemployment. However, China, an authoritarian regime, controls crisis through strict information and personnel control. George Magnus, author of Red Flags, Why Xi's China is in Jeopardy, believes that finding work for young people is critical, as youth unemployment can harm both society and the economy. Moreover, the biggest issue unemployed young people face is the so-called scarring risk identified by economists. The longer young people stay out of the official labor market, the more their skills and experience atrophy, making it more challenging to re-enter the workforce. With over 11 million new graduates entering China's labor market in July, the pressure of employment is unprecedented, and the issue of youth unemployment will become more severe. The China Macroeconomic Forum, CMF, which serves as a weather vane, reported that China's youth unemployment problem is no longer cyclical, but systemic and trend-like. It is predicted that China's youth unemployment issue might persist for 10 years, intensifying in the short term. If mishandled, it could lead to issues outside the economic sphere and even become a fuse for political problems. The main reasons for the rising youth unemployment rate are identified in analysis reported by the Financial Research Institute of the Chinese Academy of Social Sciences. Factors such as a slowdown in China's GDP growth rate, regulatory crackdowns on specific industries, changes in industrial structure, and the rapid development of AI are the primary drivers of rising youth unemployment in China. Since 2021, the Chinese Communist Party has strengthened regulations on industries such as education and training, internet platforms, and real estate, causing significant employment impacts. The report from the Financial Research Institute estimates that in 2023, over 5.708 million people became unemployed in China's education, real estate, and construction sectors, an increase of 2.405 million compared to 2019, of which youth unemployment increased by 670,000. Among the nearly 1.635 million unemployed in the education sector, over half are young people, an increase of 600,000 compared to 2019. The report also cites factors related to China's employment structures as reasons for the rise in the youth unemployment rate. In recent years, the employment structures of China's labor force has changed, with a significant increase in the service industry's unemployment ratio and a notable decrease in manufacturing. In the 3 years since the outbreak of the pandemic, China's service industry has been most severely impacted and has been slower to recover, leading to the current unemployment rate, especially the surge in youth unemployment. Additionally, the rapid development of AI technology has exacerbated youth unemployment. According to the Financial Times, the issues brought by youth unemployment in China are severe, and George Magnus, a researcher at the University of Oxford China Center, pointed out 3 reasons. First, according to a Goldman Sachs report, young people are significant consumers, accounting for a fifth of urban expenditures, including slightly older peers. People under 35 account for over 2/3 of luxury good consumption. China's weak consumer spending is undoubtedly more complex than rising youth unemployment rates, but a connection exists between the two. Second, the marked shift in occupational structure means an increased proportion of low-wage, low-skilled, and temporary jobs in manufacturing and construction. Research by Stanford University professor Scott Rozelle shows that the ratio of unofficial to official work flipped from 40-60 to 60-40 over the past 15 years, posing a significant problem for young workers in low-wage and piece-rate economies. More importantly, the insufficient total demand reflects the overemphasis on supply-side policies by the government and the growing drawbacks of China's economic development model, which focuses on state-owned enterprises, are becoming more evident. Third, there are 3 mismatch issues. Many graduates possess skills that do not align with what employers, especially in engineering, finance, and manufacturing, need. Job and wage expectations, especially among higher educated graduates, are unrealistic. Finally, Magnus stated that China's youth unemployment problem might not be resolved unless there is a shift in the national development model. The service sector needs to be expanded and opened. The government needs to actively carry out income redistribution and social security, education, and tax reforms, and shift the strategic focus to the private sector. All of these changes require significant political transformation.